The young and the restless Spoilers shock shattered alliances, the price of a deadly betrayal after the dramatic rescue of Phyllis and Sharon, a move that sent shockwaves throughout Genoa City. A new storm was brewing behind the polished facades and calculated strategies of its inhabitants. Amidst the chaos of failed plans and desperate schemes, Sally's anger was a tempest that threatened to upend more than just her personal life. In the wake of the miraculous rescue, she made a bold, irrevocable decision: she was ending her relationship with Billy. To her, the ties that had once bound them together were now nothing more than chains of regret and betrayal. For Sally, the rescue of Phyllis and Sharon was a stark reminder of the failures of her meticulously devised plan. She had envisioned a new era, one where her influence would be uncontested, and the removal of key players would pave the way for her long-coveted power. But the plan had unraveled in the most public and humiliating fashion imaginable. The women she intended to silence had survived, and with their survival, so did the hope of the old order she desperately sought to dismantle. Billy, on the other hand, found himself trapped in a whirlwind of confusion and heartache. Ever since Sally's abrupt declaration of separation, he had been left reeling. Their once promising future together now lay in tatters, and Billy's mind raced with unanswered questions. Why would Sally, the woman he loved and trusted, suddenly choose to sever the bond between them? Determined to salvage their relationship, Billy clung to the hope that Sally might come to her senses, that she might reconsider and allow love to conquer the darkness of their past mistakes. However, as the days turned into sleepless nights, Billy's growing concern gave way to an unsettling suspicion. Sally's actions were shrouded in mystery. It wasn't just the breakup that troubled him. It was the secrecy, the furtive glances, and the hushed phone calls that seemed to echo behind closed doors. His intuition screamed that something was amiss. Unable to shake his doubts, Billy began to piece together the fragments of Sally's recent behavior. Late one stormy night, as rain battered the windows of their shared apartment, Billy discovered a series of missed calls and cryptic messages on Sally's phone. His heart pounded as he listened to a recording, a heated phone conversation that he wasn't meant to hear. The voice on the other end was unmistakable. It belonged to Martin, the calculating antagonist whose schemes had always kept Genoa City on edge. In a tone laced with both venom and authority, Sally had berated him. "Martin, why did you fail? Now that Phyllis is still alive, how are we going to fix this? The plan is in shambles, and don't even think about my remaining fee. This is unacceptable." The words cut through Billy like a dagger. His mind reeled as he replayed the conversation, each phrase confirming his worst fears. Sally hadn't just ended their relationship out of emotional turmoil, she had been entangled in a far more sinister plot. In that moment, the horrifying truth emerged: Sally was the mastermind behind the entire scheme. She had covertly hired Martin with a deadly mission: to kidnap and ultimately kill Phyllis. And, as the recording made clear, she wasn't done yet. Her ambitions extended even further. She intended for Martin to swiftly dispatch both Phyllis and Sharon, eliminating any threats to her meticulously crafted future. But as fate would have it, Martin's own dark inclinations had steered the plan off course. Rather than executing Sally's orders with lethal precision, Martin had chosen a different path, a path where he aimed to extract the poison from Phyllis for his own twisted experiments, believing that by prolonging life, he could harness its secrets to bolster his power. This deviation had rendered Sally's plan not only ineffective but a spectacular failure. The unintended consequence of Martin's interference was the survival of Phyllis and Sharon, a development that now filled Sally with seething anger and bitter disappointment. Billy's shock was overwhelming. His heart, already fragile from the sudden breakup, shattered as he realized the extent of Sally's betrayal. The woman he loved had orchestrated a plan so ruthless, so devoid of empathy, that it defied every moral code he had ever held dear. The man who had once promised to stand by her through every storm was now forced to confront the monstrous truth: Sally had deliberately manipulated events for her own gain, even if it meant resorting to hiring a merciless criminal like Martin. In the days that followed, the tension in Genoa City escalated to unprecedented heights. Billy's discovery set off a chain reaction of distrust and suspicion. Questions abounded. How deep did Sally's treachery run? Who else was complicit in her covert operations? And what would become of Phyllis and Sharon, who had narrowly escaped a fate that had been so meticulously designed to extinguish their light? Haunted by the memory of that damning phone call, Billy embarked on a perilous journey of investigation. Every whispered conversation in dimly lit corridors, every secretive meeting in the back rooms of upscale establishments, led him deeper into a labyrinth of deceit. His once unwavering love for Sally began to crumble under the weight of undeniable evidence. With each piece of the puzzle, the image of Sally as a ruthless orchestrator of chaos became clearer, and the man who had once adored her now grappled with a sense of betrayal so profound that it threatened to consume him. In a climactic confrontation, Billy confronted Sally in their sparsely furnished living room, the tension palpable in every charged silence between them. His voice, trembling with both sorrow and indignation, broke the silence. How could you, Sally? I trusted you with my heart, and you used that trust to set in motion a plan that would have cost innocent lives. Phyllis, Sharon, they're still alive because Martin did not follow your orders. But why, Sally? Why risk everything for this twisted ambition? Sally's eyes, once soft and tender in moments of shared intimacy, now burned with a cold, resolute determination. In that moment, she seemed less the woman Billy once knew and more a person entirely transformed, someone who had willingly embraced darkness in pursuit of a vision that transcended ordinary morality. Her response was curt, each word measured and edged with an icy finality. Billy, you never understood. It wasn't about love or trust. It was about power, the kind that reshapes destiny. Phyllis and Sharon were obstacles, relics of a past that no longer served my purpose. Martin's failure is not his alone, it's the cost of daring to defy a fate that I was meant to control. I did what I had to do, even if it meant ending us. Those words, laden with a chilling blend of justification and regret, echoed in the silent room long after they were spoken. Billy stood there, his heart sinking as he realized that the person he had once loved was irrevocably lost, consumed by ambition and blinded by a ruthless desire to rewrite the future, regardless of the human cost. The revelation sent ripples far beyond the confines of their fractured relationship. In the complex tapestry of Genoa City, where alliances were as fragile as glass and every secret bore the weight of countless lives, Sally's betrayal became a pivotal turning point. The fallout was swift and brutal. Loyalties shifted like sand in a relentless tide of retribution, and the once carefully orchestrated balance of power teetered on the brink of collapse. Meanwhile, Martin, ever the opportunist, observed these developments with a detached curiosity. His own plans, already derailed by the unforeseen survival of Phyllis and Sharon, now took on a new dimension. The poison, which he had intended to harness for experiments to prolong life, was a cruel twist of fate that had rendered him an unwilling accomplice in Sally's schemes. His reluctance to fully execute Sally's orders underscored the unpredictable nature of his ambitions. For Martin, the failure of the plan was not a setback but an opportunity, a chance to redefine the rules of engagement in a city where life and death danced on a razor's edge. As the days turned into a tense period of uneasy calm, Billy's discovery ignited a firestorm of investigations. Friends, foes, and even neutral bystanders were drawn into a maelstrom of accusations and counter-accusations. The once secret machinations of Sally's plan were now public knowledge, a revelation that threatened to upend the fragile order that had long governed Genoa City's underworld. In a desperate bid to salvage what remained of his shattered ideals, Billy resolved to expose the full extent of Sally's treachery. His quest for truth became a mission not only of personal vengeance but of moral rectitude, a stand against the corruption that had infiltrated every level of power. With each step he took, the stakes grew higher, and the path forward became increasingly perilous. Yet, in his heart, Billy believed that even in a world marred by betrayal and deceit, there remained a sliver of hope, a hope that justice would prevail, and that the innocent could still be shielded from the fallout of one person's insatiable ambition. For Sally, the consequences of her actions were inevitable. As the forces of retribution gathered momentum, she found herself isolated in a web of her own making, a tangled network of lies and half-truths that left her increasingly vulnerable. The brilliance of her scheme had blinded her to the cost of unchecked ambition, and now she stood at the precipice of a reckoning that threatened to consume everything she had built. In the final analysis, the tale of Sally's betrayal was a stark reminder of the thin line that separated genius from madness, ambition from treachery. In the high-stakes arena of Genoa City, where every decision had far-reaching implications and every betrayal carved deep scars in the collective psyche, the price of power was measured not in dollars or accolades, but in the shattered lives of those caught in its wake. And so, as the city braced itself for the inevitable storm, a tempest of retribution, sorrow, and irreversible change, the truth was laid bare. In the ruthless pursuit of a new destiny, some sacrifices were too terrible to bear, and some hearts, once shattered, could never be mended. Exposed facade, the unraveling of Sally's deception in the volatile underbelly of Genoa City, secrets and betrayal were as common as the rising sun. But nothing had rattled the community more than the discovery of Sally's true nature, a revelation that turned the lives of those entwined in her web of ambition upside down. A shocking revelation. Billy's world shattered the moment he learned the horrifying truth about Sally. The woman he had once trusted, the partner with whom he had dreamed of building a future, had proven herself to be capable of unspeakable acts in pursuit of her own agenda. Sally's relentless determination to achieve her goals, regardless of the collateral damage, left Billy trembling with fear and disbelief. In his eyes, Sally was no longer the loving companion he once knew. She had become a merciless force willing to trample over anyone in her way. This revelation came as a series of unexpected clues began to surface. Billy, driven by both dread and a desperate need for truth, pieced together the fragments of Sally's secretive actions. What he discovered was a chilling pattern, a series of covert moves designed solely to eliminate obstacles and secure power. It was clear that Sally was prepared to sacrifice everything and everyone who stood in the way of her ultimate ambition. Jealousy and the seeds of murder. Sally's envy had long been a silent undercurrent in her relationship with Billy. However, as she watched with burning resentment the growing intimacy between Billy and Phyllis, a woman who had become a symbol of hope and resilience in the city, her jealousy morphed into something far more sinister. No longer could she tolerate the idea of Billy finding solace or love outside their fractured relationship. The toxic mixture of ambition and envy ignited a dangerous spark within Sally. Convinced that the closeness between Billy and Phyllis threatened not only her control over events but also her carefully constructed future, she resolved to take drastic measures. In the darkest corners of her scheming mind, an unthinkable idea took shape: murder. Sally believed that by eliminating one or both of the key players, Phyllis included, she could re-establish her dominance and realign the narrative in her favor. The betrayal of an unholy alliance complicating matters further was Martin, a man whose involvement in the shadowy machinations of Genoa City was as notorious as it was unpredictable. Once a willing participant in Sally's plans, Martin had grown increasingly frustrated by her failure to adhere strictly to their agreement. Their deal had been clear: Sally was to orchestrate certain moves with precision, while Martin would carry out his part with ruthless efficiency. But Sally's unbridled ambition and unpredictable behavior had thrown their collaboration into disarray. Furious at the breach of their pact, Martin's temper flared. In a moment of unrestrained anger, he issued a dire threat: he would expose every dark secret, every hidden misdeed that Sally had so carefully concealed. "I will reveal everything," he snarled during a clandestine phone call. "If you don't stick to our agreement, the whole city will know what kind of monster you really are." Yet, Martin's threats carried a heavy burden of irony. Known throughout Genoa City as a man who had committed heinous acts without a shred of accountability, a murderer whose every crime was shrouded in scandal, his words were met with skepticism by many. Could anyone truly believe a man whose reputation for ruthless violence was well established? To most, his threat was just another boast from a villain desperate to shift the blame and save his own skin. Billy's resolve, exposing the true face of evil. As the truth unfolded, Billy found himself at a crossroads. The overwhelming betrayal by Sally forced him to confront a painful reality. The woman he once loved was now an architect of destruction. With every secret uncovered and every whispered conversation recorded, Billy resolved to bring Sally's treachery into the unforgiving light of day. His mission was clear: expose Sally for who she truly was, and let the world see the monstrous ambitions hidden behind her alluring facade. Billy began a meticulous investigation, gathering evidence and connecting the dots that painted a damning portrait of Sally's actions. Every clue pointed to a premeditated effort on her part to manipulate events, orchestrate murders, and eliminate anyone who threatened her power. The final, irrefutable proof lay in a series of incriminating recordings, conversations in which Sally's voice dripped with malice as she berated her conspirators and detailed her deadly plans. One recording, in particular, sent chills down Billy's spine. It captured Sally in a moment of raw fury, her words laced with venom as she berated Martin for failing to execute her orders perfectly. "Martin, why did you fail?" she had hissed into the phone. "Now that Phyllis is still alive, how are we going to fix this? The plan is in shambles, and don't even think about my remaining fee. This is unacceptable." The gravity of her words made it clear. Sally had not only plotted to remove Phyllis but had also been willing to risk everything to regain control. The confrontation, the moment of reckoning, arrived on a stormy evening when Billy, armed with undeniable evidence and a heavy heart, confronted Sally in the quiet confines of their once shared home. The tension was palpable as the storm outside mirrored the chaos within. Billy's voice, filled with a mix of sorrow, anger, and determination, broke the silence. "Sally, I know everything," he declared, his eyes reflecting both pain and resolve. "I know about your plans, about your unyielding ambition, and about the horrible things you've done to secure your power. You've manipulated us all, and I can't stand by and let you continue this madness." Sally's reaction was a steady, controlled fury. For a moment, her eyes flashed with the intensity of her hidden ambition, but then a cold, calculated mask fell into place. "Billy," she replied evenly, "you never understood what was necessary. In this city, only the ruthless survive. I did what had to be done to shape the future, to secure our legacy." But Billy would not be swayed. "Secure our legacy," he countered bitterly. "By killing those who dare to stand in your way? By sacrificing everything for power? Phyllis, she's not just an obstacle, she's a person who deserves to live without your tyranny. And you, Sally, have become the very embodiment of everything that is wrong here." The dominoes began to fall in the days following the explosive confrontation. The intricate web of lies began to unravel. Billy's public denouncement of Sally's deeds sparked outrage among the citizens of Genoa City. As more evidence emerged, whispers of her betrayal turned into a cacophony of accusations. Allies distanced themselves from her, and even those who had once feared her influence began to question the morality behind her actions. Martin's role in the entire debacle became a catalyst for further turmoil. His threat to expose Sally was no longer just idle talk, it had gained new credibility as the investigation advanced. Although many doubted his reliability, the undeniable proof of Sally's involvement in hiring him for nefarious deeds forced even the most skeptical to reconsider their stance. Martin's name, once a byword for unprovoked violence, now became an unexpected weapon in Billy's crusade for truth. A city on the brink, the scandal rocked Genoa City to its core. The fallout from Sally's treachery extended beyond personal relationships, shaking the very foundations of the city's social order. Former allies of Sally began to question their own complicity, while those who had been victims of her schemes sought justice and retribution. The public, which had long been manipulated by the carefully crafted narratives of power and prestige, now found itself facing the raw reality of betrayal. Amid the chaos, Billy emerged as a reluctant hero, a man driven not by a desire for vengeance, but by the need to restore integrity in a world marred by deceit. His quest to expose Sally's true nature was not just about salvaging his own shattered heart, it was a stand against a corruption that had seeped into every corner of Genoa City. With each passing day, the evidence against Sally became irrefutable, and the city's long-held secrets began to surface. The inevitable reckoning. As the noose of public scrutiny tightened around Sally, she found herself increasingly isolated. The empire of deception she had built, once seemingly impregnable, began to crumble under the weight of its own corruption. In boardrooms, in darkened alleys, and across the corridors of power, the whispers grew louder, whispers that demanded accountability and justice. Martin's bitter threat had inadvertently become a turning point. Although his reputation had long been tainted by unfounded acts of violence, the unveiling of Sally's manipulations forced the community to reassess his words. The very secrets he had threatened to divulge now painted a damning picture of Sally's ambition, one that no one could ignore. The city, tired of being manipulated by unseen forces, rallied behind Billy's call for truth.